Hey guys, what is the opinion on the RTX 4060 Ti nowadays?
Still overpriced.
Absolutely do not buy this thing for $400 US.
Why is the RTX 4060 Ti bad?
Look, if it had 16 gigabytes of VRAM for $400 US, then I think it would be okay.
What is this VRAM stuff?
While, yes, available on the 4060 Ti, it is a waste of sand.
Did he just say it's a waste of sand?
A waste of sand. A waste of sand.
A waste of sand? I cannot stand for this. I gotta get a 4060 Ti.
The 4060 Ti is a great GPU. It's number 5 on the Steam hardware survey. It succeeded the 3060 Ti, which was a beast of a GPU. I mean, Nvidia said it themselves. 4060 Ti is gonna be 70% faster than that GPU. I dream of playing the latest games, and Nvidia has straight up just told me that the 4060 Ti is required for the latest games. It has DLSS, it has ray reconstruction, it has frame generation, and it has game-changing ray tracing. I'm in. Basically be shooting myself in the foot if I didn't do that. And we all know the GPU market right now. That's just insane. Browsing on eBay, the 4060 Ti is still going for a base price of $400. That was the MSRP a couple years ago when it came out. And it holding that price for so long just confirmed to me that I was getting an amazing deal. Oh my god, this is bad. I found a sick deal for $350 same day for the 4060 Ti, which is weird because he sold it to me in an RX 7600 box. That's definitely not a sign that he downgraded or anything, right? Anywho, my first impression.
Yo, so guess who just...
Well, here it is. It's this small. It's this freaking small. $400. It's so light. Well, it spins. I was speechless. Look at that tiny little graphics card. I mean, I paid $350. I guess that's why they call it Gigabyte, because there's only 8 of them. Yes, it did game. I'm playing The Last of Us Part 2, and yes, I am kind of disappointed in the sequel to it, but the 4060 Ti performance too initially just really impressed me. Whoa, okay, whoa, oh shit, oh shit, oh, okay, so all I did there was turn off motion blur. Oh shit. It'll be alright. Oh my god, wait. Oh no, this is bad. No, this is bad. This is bad. That bug's just a fluke though. Right? I also hopped on Cyberpunk, and at 1440p on high settings, I was freaking chillin'. But, you know, Cyberpunk is kind of known for its ray tracing capabilities, which the 4060 Ti is great at ray tracing. So let's try ray trace reflections first. Just see, so we're in the 70s, low 70s FPS in this area. We are dropping to... The FPS was cut in half just by turning on ray trace reflections in the game. They did look amazing. Look how smooth the textures look. All the detail just gets lost. See that? It's actually more detail in motion, it feels like. And what about some more ray tracing? Like I could just turn on every single ray tracing thing in the game. So we can get up to almost 30 FPS. And then with DLSS, you know, Nvidia's amazing technology, it makes the whole experience great on the 4060 Ti. This might not be that bad, to be honest. Alan Wake 2 is also a game known for its ray tracing capabilities and just overall presentation. Like we can turn on some ray tracing, right? You know, 4060 Ti absolutely crushes it with ray tracing. 24? Are you, dude, are you joking me? Wait, trust guys, trust. Nvidia says it's supposed to use DLSS, right? Let's go DLSS, let's go 540p, yay, 540p. Oh, and now we can get almost 60. Upscaling from 540p. Wow, this looks bad. Then I went and loaded up Monster Hunter Wilds. We all know this game by its incredible graphical optimization. What the f... What are you? It just should be studied. It is so good. This game defaulted me to 720p being upscaled to 1440p and only at medium settings on this, well, I bought it for $350 graphics card. No, I think it's time that we finally address the elephant in the room. I love launching games, and whenever I go into the settings menu, it instantly gives me a warning that I'm running out of these things. Yes, it is the VRAM. You guys might remember with the RTX 4060, I have a lot of apathy for that specific graphics card for basically the exact same reason. Almost all the issues I've been experiencing so far is actually because of these 4 chips of VRAM. They're actually 8 gigabytes of VRAM on this graphics card. Yes, this card only has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. And here is a GTX, I don't have it. Let me go grab it. Here is a GTX 1070 graphics card. This guy came out in 2016 now. It was $380 back then. I know inflation and everything now, but this had 8 gigabytes of VRAM back then. And now a $400 card in, I guess, 2025 is still only getting 8 gigabytes of VRAM. It's kind of unheard of in the realm of memory upgrades on GPUs.
Nvidia's innovation, pushing a damn rock up a hill.
This is one of the most disappointing parts about the 4060 Ti because it can actually get fast enough in a lot of games to play at 1440p with ultra settings and everything. Maybe not completely maxed out in games, but it's got the performance. But both those things, 1440p, raising your resolution and raising your game settings, both use more VRAM. I mean, how it manifests in some games like Indiana Jones, then you get this crazy bug. It's only rendering where I think NPCs are. Oh, my hands. Wait, let's just drop the resolution. Okay, we're back. Even trying to get higher textures to run in the game, but most of the time you can't even get the game to launch. That was mostly my experience. Or in a title like Cyberpunk, you want to turn on heavy ray trace, and the 4060 Ti is a great example of what this experience is like. Let's see. Hands off, hands off. We're stabilizing at a solid 1 to 2 FPS, baby. I gotta do the classic, guys. Let's see the mouse. My camera's basically in real time. Okay, let's go like pull it down. Gotta get it. Oh yeah, you saw that? Oh yeah. These VRAM problems is why the leather jacket makers themselves kind of felt our pain.
Do you like my jacket?
And proceeded to make a 4060 Ti, but with 2 times the VRAM, otherwise known as this one I have in my hand. Yes, I was able to get this as well. Barely market the 16 gigabyte version of this card whatsoever.
Apart from the official announcement a few months back, Nvidia's made no mention of the 16 gigabyte version, and it's not just Nvidia who knows the product sucks. Their partners are all painfully aware as well, with some even yet to release a 16 gigabyte model, and none of them, I repeat, none of them were willing to send us a sample.
They also delayed the launch, probably because they just started making it when they announced the 8 gigabyte version of the card. And on top of all that, is this actually costed 25% more than the 8 gigabyte version of the card, just for $10, probably $10 worth of more memory on the GPU. And when you dig into them, both of these cards, they look pretty much exactly the same. They have the exact same 8106 die. I think that's what it was. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head right now. Technically speaking, the VRAM is the only difference. Even the VRAM speed is exactly the same between the graphics cards. These look so similar in real life, but when you actually go in to play a game, they don't look very similar at all. And I'm not talking about the textures not loading in Space Marine 2. Blurry mess on the 8 gigabyte version of the graphics card. So I have fun playing that. Let's first check out Indiana Jones though. Obviously, I couldn't even use the 8 gigabyte if you were to use over medium textures in the game, even at medium. 16 gigabyte one is 71% faster even at 1080p. Pretty moderate resolution for these cards. This is the resolution these cards are marketed at almost the lowest texture quality in this game. But what's maybe more important than the average here is actually the 1% lows. These give you an idea of how stuttery the experience is on each of the graphics cards. And the 16 gigabyte one has 117% faster 1% lows. So this game feels way different on both of the GPUs. There's actually games coming up like Doom the Dark Ages that uses the same engine as this Indiana Jones game. I think it's gonna have similar issues. This isn't gonna change. Like, this is probably gonna get worse as it goes on. The experience is similar if you go to 1440p in Indiana Jones. What's crazy though is a 16GB one, if you go up to 4K, I'm not gonna lie, you're actually getting pretty reasonable performance. Like, if you use just a little bit of upscaling, I feel like you get up to 60 FPS, be completely fine. I don't know if you bothered to look over at the left side of the screen, but that one is at a solid 4 FPS. But you know, we can just ignore that. Let's just hop into Stalker 2, an Unreal Engine 5 game. 1440p on the high settings, I think things seem pretty reasonable. Both of these are stuttering quite a bit, but it's kind of how this game is. There's a lot of loading zones, it's UE5. But if you just wait long enough and give the 8GB graphics card some time to saturate, and boom. Yeah, you're looking at an absolute slideshow. You can also turn on some upscaling to decrease the resolution of the game, which does ease the VRAM burden on these graphics cards. And I think the performance stays pretty stable for both of these cards. But I can't guarantee, even with upscaling, that the 8GB card will keep running like this over like an hour-long play session. You might have way more stutters because this is only a 1-minute test. Let's go to Spider-Man Miles Morales. At 1440p, very high settings, this is a PS4 game. I think these GPUs would be able to do this, but the 16GB one is clearly running laps around the 8GB graphics card. It's like you're looking at like Usain Bolt and then like a toddler running on a track or something, and you can see the 16GB one is only going a tiny bit above 8GB of VRAM, and it's causing this many problems on the other card. It's kind of crazy. The same story happens in Horizon Forbidden West. You try to go up to very high settings in this game, and the 8GB card just completely crumbles. It is a mess. Not only that though, if you turn on DLSS upscaling, what the fuck is happening? Okay, wait. All I did was turn on DLSS quality. Bro, this is so weird. For whatever reason, it seems like if you run out of VRAM in this game, this might just be an Nvidia driver bug or something. The Nvidia GPU drivers have really not been that good lately. That gives this blue flashing thing and also hurts the performance a lot. In Cyberpunk, you can see why Nvidia markets this GPU as a 1080p GPU, because if you try to do anything above 1080p, the 16GB one really shows the true colors, what this card should be capable of. The 4060 Ti 16GB can actually play this game at native 1440p on high settings. It can get away with like 60 FPS there. Like it can be a good experience. We're in Dogtown here, probably one of the most demanding graphical areas of the game. This also happens in Nvidia's other sponsored title, Alan Wake 2. It is 10% faster at just medium settings. And again, it's all because of those funny little stats at the top, those numbers right there causing all of our problems. I wouldn't even call Alan Wake 2 necessarily a heavy VRAM title. It can get up there if you use a bunch of ray tracing and stuff. But wait guys, let's talk about ray tracing. Just turning on ray tracing, just ray tracing medium, this can go above ray tracing high. I think there's an ultra setting now in the game, and at 1080p the 16GB one is faster and the 1% lows are just way better, way more stuttery on the left side of the screen on the 8GB one. Now the performance is still pretty bad on both of the graphics cards. Like, I don't recommend playing on them. You can maybe get away with it if you upscale a bit in these games. I think that's another disappointing part of this graphics card is we're still paying $500 for the 16GB one, and the ray tracing isn't really amazing here. We can head over to Cyberpunk, and if we just enable ray traced reflections in the game, it looks like the game is running pretty okay on the 8GB graphics card. But then if you zoom out, what kind of performance it should actually be getting here? Clearly, this is a VRAM problem because the 16GB one can achieve over 60 FPS or around in there. And if you go to upscaling at 1080p, which DLSS 4 upscaling, the new DLSS version, actually looks pretty damn good on these GPUs, then you can get up to the 80s on the 16GB card, whereas the 8GB one is just, it can't even hit 60. And what's crazy is a 16GB one, because it has that excess VRAM, or what it should have had VRAM wise from the start, it can do path tracing. You can't get it functioning at all on the 8GB graphics card. Now, just to be fair, like The 16GB one, I don't think I could ever really get it running on this card because it needs too much upscaling at either 1080p or 1440p to really be effective. I just personally wouldn't play on it. Maybe one of you guys would. You can also see this in Indiana Jones. This game has path tracing as well. Obviously, that can't even run on the 8GB graphics card. And it's not really a great experience on the 16GB one either. I don't recommend it. Ratchet and Clank 16GB can get a comfortable 81 FPS on average at 1080p, whereas the 8GB graphics card is only hovering close to like 60. I mean, remember, under the hood, these are the exact same chip. It only gets worse at 1440p, where the resolution makes more VRAM demands. The 16GB one is looking like what the 8GB one did at 1080p. Actually, an entire graphics tier jump between these graphics cards right now, yet them being called the exact same thing. Nvidia advertises this for the 4060 Ti. Like, they want you to take advantage of this. In every case, ray tracing uses more VRAM than it does not using ray tracing. If you're barely getting by with the VRAM on the 8GB card, then you're going to definitely struggle to run ray tracing on it as well. But there are some certain situations where ray tracing doesn't use more than like, 8GB of VRAM, and we can get a proper test of how they perform. All this shows is that the 8GB 4060 Ti versus the 16GB 4060 Ti, like on paper, they're pretty much the exact same graphics card, but in practice, they perform completely different. In ray tracing, on average, I found the 16GB one was 39% faster and is a much less stuttery experience as well. And rasterization is still 13% faster. And it changes quite a bit as you go from 1080p, which uses less VRAM. You go up to 1440p, up to 4K. It only gets crazier. And this is where everything started to click into place. They used to only be $50 apart new, and now they're over $200 apart on the used market. Like, clearly, people are valuing the 4060 Ti 16GB a lot more than the 8GB version. Something I've been really happy with is I was able to get the exact same model of the 4060 Ti from Gigabyte here. I don't know how I did that on the used market, pretty lucky, but we can actually see what the differences are when it comes down to the design of these GPUs and graphics cards in total. Maybe tell that the one on the right has a slightly different finish on the back plate. That's because this is a metal back plate. This is a plastic back plate. It's because they have to put those memory chips on the back of it, which means that they're using the back plate, and they actually put thermal pads for it. Oh, there we go. To conduct some of that heat. Huge thing. They had to move the memory further away from the GPU die itself. I know, earth-shattering stuff, guys, probably just to make more room for the other like controllers and stuff they gotta put on the board. Look at this little thing. I don't know what you do. It's magnetic. I don't really know what the hell it is. Let me know in the comments if you know what it is. I gotta talk to BuildZoid or something. Could get Nvidia charging like a little bit more, but not $100. And that's how much it was at the start. Because when you do break it down, it is such a small, cooler design. You see the tiny GPU die that is on it. This is giving me flashbacks of the 4060. This is the exact same die that's on the 4060. We're paying this much, $400 plus for both of these graphics cards is wild. Especially if you compare this to what the 3060 Ti used to be. 3060 Ti, 4060 Ti. This wasn't technically a base price, like the lowest price model. And this is the part that truly breaks my mind, because Nvidia themselves claim that the 4060 Ti is 15% faster than the 3060 Ti. Yeah, I was being a little goofy at the beginning. Let's ignore the frame generation results. Does it hit 15%? Well, Nvidia did claim that this was at 1080p. Let's check that out. I found that it might be true. In Black Ops 6, it's 23% faster at 1080p, which is a pretty big deal, probably because the extra cache that Nvidia put on the 4060 Ti is leading to larger improvements in this title. In Cyberpunk though, it was only 14% faster, and that seems like it's about in line with Nvidia is claiming. In Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the 4060 Ti is 11% ahead. If you do go up to ultra settings in this game though, it does pull ahead to 15%. Last of Us Part 1 is 15% exact too, but on Ultra, it drops to only 6%. To be honest, we're not going to talk about 1440p because there is plenty of titles and settings in these games that the 4060 Ti actually loses to the 3060 Ti. Now, Marvel Rivals is only 9% ahead. Space Marine 2 is right there at 15%. Stalker 2 is 19% ahead, which is pretty good there. Remnant 2 is only 9% though. And harkening back, Spider-Man Miles Morales makes the 4060 Ti look like a damn fool. And I think it's because the drastically reduced memory bandwidth on the 4060 Ti. This all came out to the 4060 Ti being only about 9% faster at 1080p in rasterized games. I mean, that is a laughably small amount of performance for an entire generation. This was 2.5 years between these GPUs. Overall performance across different games and settings and stuff, you get a big 13% faster on the 4060 Ti, which is a little bit of a difference, but you can say the 1% lows aren't that much faster because there is a larger improvement to ray tracing, which are included in these tests. I found that pretty consistently. Like, most games do perform better on the 4060 Ti. They made some generational ray tracing improvements with 40 series compared to 30 series. The problem is though, with ray tracing on a 4060 Ti, is the damn VRAM again. What's funny though, is I think the 4060 Ti 16GB, that card would have been a way better generational uplift over the 3060 Ti. Like, it makes so much more sense. I'm starting to lose my mind a little bit because the 3060 Ti on paper seems like a much superior graphics card. The 3060 Ti was marketed at 1440p. They were comparing it to a 2080 Super. You compare it to the marketing of a 4060 Ti, and they were just comparing it to like a 2060 Super and a 3060 Ti. They didn't try to claim that a 4060 Ti could do better things than it really can. So the 3060 Ti was way more ambitious from the start and had over 2 times the GPU die area. Also, the 3060 Ti had 12% more CUDA cores, which relates usually to more performance on the graphics card. Obviously, Nvidia made some really good architectural improvements with the 40 series, so the 4060 Ti usually is ahead of the 3060 Ti. Also, the 3060 Ti has 2 times the memory bus width. 3060 Ti can take up to 8 memory chips on it. Bus width does translate to more memory bandwidth. It looks like an entirely different class of graphics card. They coped so hard trying to say that this memory bandwidth thing didn't matter because the 4060 Ti had more cache on the GPU. That's crazy. It would have been way easier for them to put 16GB of VRAM on a 3060 Ti instead of doing all the stuff they had to do for the 4060 Ti, because the 3060 Ti only uses 1GB memory modules on it. All they would have to do is turn that into 2GB modules, and boom, it would have 16GB of VRAM. It'd be a very similar thing that they did with the 3060, like the base one. Now, people have actually modded the 3060 Ti to have 16GB on it. And what's crazy is Nvidia seems like they plan to put 16 gigs on it from the start, or maybe even offer 2 models or something, because if you mod in more RAM, you can just flip a BIOS switch. Apparently, at least on some of the models of graphics cards, it just works with 16GB of VRAM. Nvidia knew from the start 16GB would be too good and people wouldn't want to upgrade from a 3060 Ti. It would be way too baller of a graphics card. Now, one benefit that the 4060 Ti has, does draw less power than the 3060 Ti. Like, I found it to be 50 watts less and 70 watts less on the total system power. And with ray tracing in Alan Wake 2, it was only like 30 watts on the GPU and 50 watts on the overall power. And it was getting 18 FPS on Alan Wake 2 compared to 10 FPS on the 3060 Ti for drawing a little bit less power too, so that's pretty good. But with all this power efficiency and these specs that the card is built on, the 4060 Ti really is looking like a 4050 Ti and probably should have been that from the start. It just doesn't look like a 60 class card. Even at the time, AMD had options like the 7700 XT, but it was going for about $400 after just a little bit of time. It got discounted. The 4060 Ti is 18% slower than the 7700 XT in rasterized gaming. Yes, the 4060 Ti is a little bit faster in ray tracing, not as much as you would think, and we already talked about it. Ray tracing on either of these cards is probably not going to be something you're going to be doing. So the main thing is 7700 XT has 12GB of VRAM. And honestly, the 4060 Ti 8GB barely stacks up with AMD's 4-year-old 6750 XT graphics card that I got for only $300. It also has 12GB of VRAM, which the 4060 Ti just cannot relate to. But I hear you. I hear you right now already. Frame generation, frame generation, the fake frames can fake its way to victory on the 4060 Ti. And I'm here to tell you that you get quote unquote 2 times FPS, because what I found on average is that you only get about 46% more frames using frame gen on the 4060 Ti. And the latency is higher. And then there's also glitches in the fake frame, so your image quality goes down a little bit. Now it's funny, the 16GB version actually gets 50% more frames, probably because DLSS frame generation actually requires more VRAM too. That's why I gotta admit to you guys something. Like, we've been yapping this whole video. They were right. They've always been right.
4060 Ti is a waste of sand.
It's struggling now. And tons of games I bet you guys want to play. And if Nvidia wanted to make genuinely a good product, a very good product, then they would have just made the 16GB model of the card. The worst part about it to me is actually the name. Brings me back to the person that I bought this from. You remember how he gave me a 7600 box for the 4060 Ti? It's like, why did he give me that box? It's actually because he downgraded from the 4060 Ti to the 7600 from AMD. And that's because when he got a 4060 Ti from somebody on Facebook Marketplace, he thought at first that he was getting the 16GB version of this graphics card. So when we went to go test it and everything, it didn't really run like he wanted it to. At the end of the day, I would consider this situation to be an uncommon result. I think that most people that get 4060 Ti's probably get them in pre-built PCs, or they go online or something, or go shopping on the used market now. They just buy the cheapest 4060 Ti available. And guess what? Most of those are 8GB graphics cards, and most people aren't as educated as we are. We're educated GPU buyers out here. Yeah, they see that it's having stuttering, they see that it's having poor performance, or maybe even getting crashing or bugs in the game. You get this weird ass experience on the 4060 Ti 8GB. They might start blaming it on the game. They call the game unoptimized, when in reality, Nvidia made an unoptimized GPU. I also want to say, don't you think it's convenient? Like, when you get an Nvidia GPU, you're prompted to download the Nvidia app. It allows you to see the latency that's in the game. Also, Nvidia can show you the power consumption of your GPU. So, you would think because they have lower power consumption on their cards, they're trying to show that off. But conveniently, Nvidia's app cannot show the VRAM usage that's going on your graphics card. Maybe so you can't diagnose the problem very easily of what's happening. All my other programs can detect VRAM usage just fine, and they have nothing to do with Nvidia at all. This whole thing just gives me the vibe that this 8GB card was intentionally misleading. And they also place this as a 4060 Ti, like it's a mass market card. Like, a lot of people don't do as much research when they buy these. It's clearly on borrowed time, just existing in 2025 right now. Now, that isn't to say you can get it running, and you can get it running pretty well. Obviously I enjoyed plenty of games on it. I don't think I beat Cyberpunk on this card, but I played quite a bit of Cyberpunk on this, played quite a bit of Last of Us Part 2, played some Black Myth Wukong. That game doesn't use that much VRAM, so that's pretty good. It played pretty damn well with some upscaling at 1440p. And obviously, one of the go-to games out there, Lethal Company. No, I just speedran dead. I don't know, how does it do it? The 8GB card can run this game that makes me feel like I need glasses. Me personally, I can get this 8GB card running pretty much anything. Maybe not at 4K all the time, but I can get running pretty much anything I'd want it to, and I'd have a pretty good experience. And this 8GB card could maybe be a good experience for you if you know how to tweak graphics settings as well. The thing is, you're doing quite a bit for a graphics card that costs $400, and you shouldn't be making compromises like that, all right? It's too expensive to be in that position. It doesn't really make sense. And that's why I'd be disingenuous. So if I were to try to recommend this to anybody out there, I can't, man. I couldn't do that. At least from all this with the 4060 Ti, that we know that Nvidia has learned from their mistakes, and they won't ever make this mistake again. Oh shit. I've been working on this one for a while. I had a lot of graphics cards to test, so this has been a wild experience. But let me know what you think about this, and have you tried this card, or have you ever thought about getting a 4060 Ti? It just doesn't make sense to me. And as I was buying this graphics card, I felt like I was getting e-waste. It's a wild thing that this is where 60 Ti classes are. In the 5060 Ti, I actually have the 16GB version of it up there right now. They did it again. I'll see you in the next video. All right, peace.